Hello, my name is Asmaa al-issa. I'm recording today from my studio in Mohkinstsis, or colonially known as Calgary, Alberta. I want to start by extending gratitude to the land where I live and its original people on Treaty 7 territory. I'm currently based here in Mohkinstsis, where I immigrated 20 years ago with my family. I was born in Baghdad, Iraq, and it's very meaningful for me and my family, and surely many other immigrants, to be able to come here and call this place home. I will be speaking a little bit about my remote residency with the Alberta Public Art Network, funded by the City of Calgary. I'm very grateful to have received the support for my artistic practice over the past few months. I'll be showing some images and talking about where my practice was at, what I've done for the past few months, and what things I have been thinking about, and also where I'm headed with my artistic practice. Over the past few months, I've had the opportunity to travel quite extensively around southern Alberta, which I'm always very, very grateful to do. I feel a very close connection to the landscape. So this is an image from Blackfoot Crossing Historical Park. This is Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump Interpretive Center. Writing on Stone Provincial Park. And Drumheller. This is Horseshoe Canyon. And this is the Bow River, really close to my studio here. The more that I learn about this land, its original people, the culture, and their traditions, I automatically have been creating connections to how I relate to my ancestors and the land where I was born. So I've started a bit of archival research, which is so far on a surface level, but I feel very strongly that there is something for me to dig into here. And so I've put together some pairings of images that I've found that kind of parallel a colonial documentation of what's currently known as Alberta and Western Canada, and what's currently known as Iraq. And so here are aerial views of the Elbow River on the left in 1903 and the Tigris River in 1932. Here are two images showing Indigenous men contemplating the landscape, likely asked to pose for their picture to be taken. The one on the left is 1885. The one on the right is dated sometime between 1860 and 1930. Here on the left are some yak at Wainwright, Alberta. The date is unknown. And on the right are some water buffaloes and indigenous Arab tribes in the marshes in between 1860 and 1930. Water buffaloes are very popular in Iraq, and they're really well known for their milk, which is used to make gaymar. And it's a version of clotted cream that all Iraqis miss and crave, and it cannot be duplicated with any other kind of milk, unfortunately. Here are images documenting families, women, and children on the left. Are from the Kainai Nation in 1891 to 1896. On the right are a family of Yazidis in 1860, between 1860 and 1930. And the original title is Devil Worshippers, And it's clear from the collection of photographs that they were taken in a religious perspective, as they documented a lot of biblical sites, and so these kinds of titles are interesting and give perspective on what the people behind the lens were thinking about the people that they were photographing. And here are indigenous people on the Elbow and the Euphrates riverbanks, washing clothes and filling water vessels. So this research was the beginning of designing a workshop series that I called Between Four Rivers. And so thinking about the two rivers in Calgary, the Elbow and the Bow River, and the two rivers that run through Iraq, Dijla and Furat, or Tigris and Euphrates. And this workshop that I hosted back in January, February of this year, of 2021, was specifically for Arab women that were based in Mohkinstsis, or Calgary. And it was for women of all generations to get together and reflect on their relationships with their homelands and the lands that they now call home. So this was done through different artistic exercises and expressions, and participants had the opportunity to learn more about the history and traditions of this particular land, as well as had the chance to connect and share ideas and experiences with one another. When it comes to identifying more points of connection between these distant places where me and my family have come from and where we now live, I found familiarity in the very common wild rose, so otherwise known as the Rosa arkansana, which is native to Alberta and has a deep history of traditional and medicinal uses among Indigenous peoples of this land. Its powerful scent is comparable to the Rosa damascena, or the damask rose, commonly found in Central Asia and historically used in the making of rosewater, as well as other traditions. So based on this, I put together a simple gathering in the park. It was for Middle Eastern friends. I was thinking about it as a collective rosewater cleanse, while having the chance to interact with nature, share memories, and eat and be in company of one another. So the reason why it's a cleanse is rosewater in different Middle Eastern traditions is often used and associated with cleansing. And so, for example, participants at this gathering or people that attended were greeted with a sprinkle of rosewater from a kilibdan to cleanse their hands. So kilibdan is that silver vessel. It's filled with rosewater, and this is a tradition of cleansing with rosewater when entering a space of gathering. Participants were given drawing tools, and they had time to explore the surrounding space along the Bow River. They were given very simple activities from Jarda Activity Pack. That was a series of drawing activities and prompts that was designed by artist Jessica Ilmal, who ran a series of workshops and gatherings for Arab women in Manchester. And so after this, everyone got back together and shared insights and memories, and really interesting conversations and moving conversations were brought up. At the end of the gathering, everyone was gifted rosewater rose petals and a wild rose sapling to plant and nurture. I served snacks that all had rose or rose water as an ingredient, and I understand these gatherings as ways of nurturing and caring for traditions, caring for our memories, for our ancestral ties, and I feel strongly that these processes of nurturing have to be done collectively, that there is something very important to be done together. So for me, these gatherings are the beginnings of something important that I am invested in around how to nurture our relations with the lands that we live on, while strengthening the bonds with our ancestors and setting up spaces for true alliances and friendships. So I've identified 2 other plants with potential connections to be explored in the future. I've already planted them and hope to nurture them as they grow, and I can continue to learn more about them and their traditional uses. On the left pictured is bee balm or wild bergamot, which has an aromatic smell that is similar to zatar, which is a version of Arabic thyme. On the right is wild mint and shares traditional uses such as drying and using for tea. These are some images from ALCLA, Alberta Native Plants Nursery, which is where I got my wild rose saplings. It's a nursery that is in Bearspawn. I would encourage everyone to contact them for getting native plants, grasses, and seeds. As I continue to plant and nurture native plants and learn more about them, it makes me feel like I'm actively participating in something meaningful. This is important for me while I pursue projects about the date palm and nakhla, which are native to Iraq. The land that is present-day Iraq is historically known as the Fertile Crescent. Palm groves line the riverbanks for centuries, and hundreds of millions of palms covered Iraq, mostly in the south, giving it a distinct aerial view of a black landscape from the density of the palm groves. However, over the past 40 years, the number of palms has been reduced drastically. It's been estimated from 300 million to 3 million. This is due to several reasons, including, but not limited to, war, forest clearing for military purposes, more recently, forest clearing for development, poor water quality, poor farming conditions, limited resources, and environmental reasons. The list goes on. So, in an attempt to think through the possibilities for regenerating this land and regenerating the palm trees, I've gathered research on date palm care and cultivation, and have been translating it to a video game. The working title is Pomagotchi. The game is still in the process of being programmed and animated in collaboration with Patrick Blinkhorn, so stay tuned, but here are some screenshots of what it potentially will look like and what different aspects it will include. The game will require players to nurture a date palm from infancy until harvest. The game simulates the processes involved in date cultivation, including planting, maintaining, and pollinating palm trees, as well as harvesting dates. This work, as a form of knowledge keeping to preserve traditions, invites the player to understand themselves as active agents within the regeneration process of Iraqi palms. And from here, I hope to continue my researches and questions and imaginings and creative expressions and gatherings with friends and allies, to be guided by inspiration and joy, and always in honor of my ancestors and the ancestors of Turtle Island. To conclude my presentation, I'll leave you with this image of a tiny wild rose shrub full of ripe rose hips in the late season. Thank you so much.